Thank you for watching this video on CA Workload Automation iDash Release 12.0.01 Automatic Import of CA Workload Automation AE Archive Data. CA Workload Automation iDash has always provided the ability to keep CA Workload Automation AE records for reporting and forecasting purposes. In previous versions of iDash, the process of importing records from AE to iDash was not managed by iDash itself. The records were required to be imported manually or by creating a set of jobs and schedules in AE to perform these tasks. With Release 12.0.01 of iDash, we are introducing the ability to have the record import and management process automated. Automated importation of AE records may be controlled at the per instance and per record type level. In addition to automating the record import, we are also introducing automation for post-import record processing, calculating average run times, and purging older records from the iDash database. These record processing tasks are performed periodically, beginning immediately after the first automated import is completed. The length of time to retain imported records is configurable at a per-record type level. When defining a new CA Workload Automation AE instance, you will see a new tab, Archive Data Settings. On this tab, you will find controls for each type of data that may be automatically archived in iDash's database: job runs, event records, and auto-track records. For new instance definitions, the automatic archival option is enabled by default. To disable the process, simply uncheck the box for each record type you do not want automatically archived. You may also specify the length of time to keep CA Workload Automation AE records before they are removed from the CA Workload Automation iDash database. The default values are 365 days for job run records, 180 days for event records, and 365 days for auto-track records. These values may be adjusted to meet your record retention requirements as needed. It is important to make sure that your iDash database will be able to contain all of the records you want to keep. We will discuss database sizing later in this video. When you save your instance definition, any changes made to the archive data settings are saved as well. For users upgrading from previous versions of CA Workload Automation iDash, the automatic archive function is available as well. The function will be initially disabled for existing instances, but may be enabled at any time. If you have created any outside automation of the archival process, such as a scheduled job run by CA Workload Automation AE, be sure to disable that automation before proceeding. Check the boxes for each record type you would like to have iDash import automatically, and specify the number of days to retain the records. CA Workload Automation iDash is dependent on its database to operate. It is important that the database be sized appropriately to ensure continuous availability of iDash. Allowing the database to fill will cause errors and downtime for iDash, while database maintenance tasks are performed to restore service. Prior to enabling automatic import of CA Workload Automation AE records, it is a good idea to review suggested database sizing guidelines. Keep in mind that the current level of activity for your system is not the appropriate figure to use for determining your database size. Instead, consider the anticipated growth of the workload engines your iDash instance is monitoring, and base your sizing considerations on the highest level of activity you anticipate over the course of the record retention period you are considering, or even longer. For example, you want to retain your records for 1 year, and you are planning on adding new instances and doubling the number of jobs per day run by your instances over the next 2 years. It may be best to size your database for the anticipated doubled level of activity so that by the time you reach that level, you will not need to worry about database constraints for iDash. Each type of record retained for scheduler instance activity has a slightly different associated size requirement, given here as a sizing factor. The sizing factor is the approximate space required to store 1 million rows of the given record type. To calculate the recommended space required for each data type, multiply the number of anticipated rows of that data type you will generate between all scheduler instances on a high-activity day. Then multiply by the number of days you wish to retain that record type. Round the result up to the next million and multiply by the sizing factor for the record. Sizing factors: AE job runs, number of total rows times 0.2 gigabytes. AE events, number of total rows times 0.9 gigabytes. AE auto track, number of total rows times 0.8 gigabytes. And CA7 job runs, number of total rows times 0.25 gigabytes. The table shown here contains an example calculation based on the recommended sizing factors. Let's examine one of the calculations. The first row shows the calculation for AE AutoTrack data. The estimate is that all AE instances monitored by this iDash server will generate around 500,000 rows of AutoTrack data every day. We wish to store that data for 120 days. Multiplying these figures gives us a storage requirement of 60 million rows. The sizing factor for each million rows of AutoTrack data is 0.8 gigabytes, so multiplying gives us an anticipated space requirement of 48 gigabytes for the AutoTrack data alone. Similar calculations are performed for the other data types. The total recommendation for just these records is 292 gigabytes. Keep in mind that extra space is required for other iDash data and definitions. In this case, a reasonable amount of storage space for the total iDash database would be around 350 gigabytes. Thank you for viewing this video. To learn more about this product, connect with other users, and share your own expertise, visit the CA Workload Automation community at the URL shown. This concludes the training on the auto import of CAWA AE archive data.